Welcome once again. Well, today we are going to finish up with these videos. This is Unit 12. And of course, we will conclude our units for Live 6. So I hope that you will enjoy this video as usual. Okay. We are going to focus attention on two main themes today. The first one, let me share with you. Well, it's raining. You may listen to that. But anyway, it's always raining here in Santo Domingo. We cannot find the exact moment in which the rain starts. We may say that it rains a lot. It rains thousands of times. So notice that we cannot refer to a specific amount of rain in here, okay? Then that's something that we are going to study today. We will focus attention on certain words that we use for approximation. And that's the topic of today's lesson, okay? So grammar in this unit is going to analyze approximation, mainly approximation. We will also analyze would, okay? And let us analyze first this example. Well, maybe you have heard about this. This is a cave and it's marvelous. You can see all paintings here, sorry. The Cueva de las Manos, or Cave of the Hands in Argentina, is in the region of 9,000 years old. Visitors to the ancient paintings arrive at the edge of a canyon and then walk for 2 hours, more or less, until they reach the caves. A lot of the paint is a kind of reddish, brownish color, which outlines well over 800 hands. Most of the hands are male, and 30 or so are right-handed. They are resemble the approximate hand size of a 13-year-old child. Well, notice that we are referring to a finding in a cave, but we cannot count. There are thousands of hands, and when that happened, we don't know. We just find a relative uh, moment in time. Okay, that's what we are going to analyze today. Okay, the use of numerals and some other words that we use to refer to this specific, let's say, issue. Okay, so we use approximate language in spoken and informal written English. That's true. Okay, when it is not important to give the exact details, okay, the exact details of these, let's say, uh, number, okay? Or maybe because we don't know exactly the number, okay? The amount. Well, first, of course, we are going to use certain numbers, okay? To refer to this. Then let's see what we are talking about, okay? Let me give you these as a presentation. Well, first, when we don't know exactly these numbers, we may use other words that are also referred to this fact, okay? So for instance, in the first case, we say, as you can see here, okay, let me see. Wow, it's raining, cats and dogs. Well, as I said, in this case, well, you can say that we may use some, which is indefinite. We may refer to a number without mentioning the exact amount. So we say some 9,000 years old, okay? It's approximately 9,000 years old. It's around, okay? It's roughly, or it's in the region of 9,000 thousand years old, okay? Then that's what we mean. We are using some and then the number. Some before a number suggests a large amount. That's true. Okay, so you say 800 odds hens. We don't know exactly, but odd, it's also a word that means approximately. Okay, so we say 800 or so, it's about hands, okay? 800 or so hands, or 2 hours more or less. So notice that we are not mentioning the exact moment or the exact number. We are just saying or so or more or less, okay? So as you can read here, odd can mean approximately or a little more than the number mentioned. And we could also use other, let's say, fractions like dozens of, hundreds of, loads of, thousands of. Those are words that we use sometimes just to refer to approximation, okay? So let's see. Well, in this case, we have said some numbers, and these numbers will help us to give an idea of what we are saying, not the exact amount, okay? So we could also use about this 10, dozens, hundreds, tens of thousands, many others, okay? And then after that, we add a noun. For instance, there were thousands of people at the present uh, in that region, okay? And well, there were at the present, no, at that time, okay? So there were thousands of people at that time in the region. Well, in that case, we of course mention a large amount, but we are not referring to the exact number, okay? We may also use other prepositions similar to those that we have said before, which is around, about, roughly, and in the region of. Well, those are mainly prepositions that we use to refer to a given amount. Well, we can say, for instance, we have around $50 to spend on a present for our friend, okay? Or we can say we have about $50 to spend on a present for a friend. Or we have roughly $50 to spend on a present for our friend, okay? So in those cases, we have used a preposition before the number, or we could also say the number or so. We have $50, we have about $50, we have around $50, okay? And then when you don't know, we can also add so, and then we say we have about $50 or so. We don't know, it's about that amount, okay? Then we also, let's say, use over with the meaning more than, okay? When we use over, we can say that we establish a limit and it's more than that limit. And if it is under that limit, we will say under is less than, okay? Or we can also say up to, it means that not more than that limit, okay? And of course, we add the number. For instance, when we say up to 30 million people are expected to vote in tomorrow's election, it's no more than that, okay? It's just up to 30 million people, okay? Or as many as, with a meaning not more than that. We say, let's say the meaning it's at some, and then the about a given, let's say, number, and of course it's just high or unexpected or important. For instance, when you say every year, some, many as, okay, some 2 million people visit Iceland, okay, is just as many as, all right? It's just that amount. Some means, as we said at the beginning, just an approximation. And we could also use number plus odd, okay, in informal conversation, okay? So we can say, for instance, I've been visiting, or I've been working, I've been studying here, okay, for 30 odd years now, okay? So I have been, I don't know, working or visiting or studying something here for 30 odd years now. And that odd means that it could be 29, it could be 31. It's around that precise, let's say, amount of, let's say, uh, amount, okay? Then we could also use adjectives. Adjectives like kind of, okay? Or we could also use, let's say, the suffix ish to make that adjective less exact. So we may say, for instance, it's kind of paint. We don't know what kind of paint is that, those of the hands, but it is similar to a paint, okay? Like a painter creation in a masterpiece, okay? But it was in a cave. It was not normal instruments. So we can say it's kind of paint. We don't know what that is, okay? And as you may remember, we use it's bluish, it's yellowish, it's yellowish, it's shortish. In those cases, we don't know exactly what adjective to describe something, but we have an idea, okay? And there is, apart from some, there is another thing which is vague. And for that reason, we use, well, not now, just a second. Well, for that reason, we use stuff and thin, okay? Those are words that give us a vague idea of what we refer to. Then for that, we say, for instance, what's that black stuff in the water? We don't know. It's an object. It's something that it's floating on the water, but we cannot see exactly what that is. Okay, so we say, "What's that stuff?" Okay, sorry. You are working on something, and we don't know what that is, and we just go to you and we say, "What's that stuff?" Well, because we don't know. Okay, and the same, the word thin. Okay, ye may say it here, okay? To pack all your things in that case, you see, it means that all your things could be your belongings, could be your clothes, could be your stuff in uh, the idea of traveling or doing something in which you need a case, okay? So that's it. This was the first item that we had to analyze in this unit. Then the second item we had to analyze is wood, as I mentioned. Well, you have some examples here, like, would you like a cup of coffee? That's normal. You have heard that before. Would you like a cup of coffee? What's the meaning of that? We will see it later. Then we could also say, that would be nice. Sometimes we use that expression. Would you pour, please? Or when we were young, my grandmother would always drink sorry. Just a second. Okay, let me stop because there is a music here, and let me stop this. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption. Of course, that was unexpected. So let's continue. I am going to share with you this last fragment, okay? Well, here it is. We were just reading some examples of the use of this important structure, the use of wood. So sometimes we always say phrases like this, and these phrases contain wood. Why? Because it's the normal way we use to refer to many things, but especially unreal facts, okay? So when you were young, I think this was the last, when you were young, we were young, my grandmother would always drink tea at 4 o'clock. I would have a cup of tea if I were you. It help you to relax. They say they would have the tea ready when we arrive. So, of course, they are talking about tea because that's the custom, that's the tradition in English-speaking countries. But normally we drink coffee or we drink other beverages in Latin America, okay? Well, what's the analysis we have to do to understand this structure? It's quite simple. Well, you can see that we use wood here in conditionals. It's the common way to use wood, okay? So we use it because we want to describe a hypothetical situation. The example, if they'd asked, we would have made them a cup of coffee or a cup, or I don't know, any other beverage. I would have a cup of tea if I were you. So in those cases, we are just describing not a real fact, but a hypothetical situation. The second usage is just to talk about the future in the past. That's important because that's also a very, let's say, subjunctive, all right? So let's say, for instance, they said, well, the example here is to report an intention, expectation, or decision, okay? That's why we use it to talk about the future in the past, okay? The intention in the past, the expectation in the past, or the decision in the past, which has to be with the future. So we say, for instance, they say they would have the tea ready when we arrive. So they said that in the past, okay? And it would be ready in the future, okay? When we arrive. Then the third possible use of this would, modal verb, it's to describe a habitual action, but not a state, okay? It's something that is a habit in the past. When we were young, my grandmother would always drink tea at 4 o'clock. So it was a habitual action in the past. And the fourth use is to indicate a person or thing's refusal to do something in the past. I tried to convince her, but she wouldn't change her mind. So in those cases, we use would. But we also use would in polite offers and requests. Would you like a cup of coffee? That's a polite offer. Would you pour, please? Would you give me some? In polite responses to a request or invitation, that would be great, thanks. Or to express an opinion or hope less forcefully or in a more indirect way. For instance, I would think that the later train would be better. That's what I think. That's my opinion. I would think, okay? Or when we say, I would have hoped that you'd finish by today. I expected that you had finished, but of course, it was not. So in that case, we use would as well, because I want to express my opinion in a more indirect way. Okay, so those were the different, let's say, grammatical structures that you have to analyze in unit number 12. Well, you have a lot of activities and exercises. And of course, as usual, we will meet on Sunday to talk about a general view of these, let's say, important issues. Okay, so goodbye, and I'll see you on Sunday. Well, I am going to stop now the recording, and of course,